way home in our countdown of the top 10 worst tornadoes. We started with El Reno that killed 4 storm chasers. 9 is the 2008 Super Tuesday outbreak. That's followed by the Moore, Oklahoma monster and a rare New England F4 twister. And number 6 decimated downtown Gainesville, Georgia in 1936. Our number 5 was the second biggest outbreak on record at the time. It was Palm Sunday, 1965, and many people were attending church services. One possible reason why some people never got their warnings. "48 tornadoes terrorized 6 states across the Midwest. It lasted 11 hours, and the combined damage path was over 1,000 miles. This outbreak was one of the most violent and deadly ever.
There were 17 tornadoes in this outbreak, rated F4. All told, about 260 deaths.
138 people were killed in Indiana alone, making it the deadliest outbreak in the state's history. The town of Dunlap was hit especially hard. A twin-funneled F4 obliterated a trailer park, killing 14 people. Then, a half hour later, another F4 slammed directly into Dunlap, killing another 36.
In some cases, tornadoes that twined about each other, thought initially to be part of the same tornado, but afterwards realized to be one tornado still in progress while another one was forming right beside it.
Almost 3,500 were injured, and of the 48 tornadoes, 21 were killers.
The Palm Sunday tornado also gave rise to, as a response to the National Weather Service changing the way it tried to communicate information about tornadoes to people because of what was viewed as the very large death toll and the fact that given the large area that was affected, we ought to be able to tell people something more than we currently do.
Our next tornado was absolutely wicked, bulldozing a small Midwestern town. It's the single deadliest tornado on record since 1947 and the costliest in U.S. history. At number 4, the 2011 Joplin, Missouri twister. It started with a storm that wasn't that impressive on radar, but turned into a natural disaster of epic proportions for the city of Joplin, Missouri.
Get to your basement immediately. The lowest, most interior room of your home. You want to stay away from windows.
Probably not even going to be visible to everyone that lives in downtown Joplin and then east side of Joplin. That's where it is right now. You have to take shelter as quickly as possible.
The city of almost 50,000 people was under siege by a massive EF5 tornado that threw debris 1,800 feet in the air.
The tornado came about over a very short period of time, less than 5 minutes, from basically a very strong thunderstorm to an incredibly violent tornado. And that happened to occur on the boundary of a densely populated city.
It's a massive tornado, massive destruction. It's like it's a mile-wide tornado. It's leveling the south side of Joplin right now.
The twister was on the ground for almost 20 minutes, cutting a swath 3/4 of a mile wide through the city.
We just held each other because we knew it was over. We were gone. The sound. I'll never, ever get that sound out of my head. I'll never get my husband's screaming out of my head.
I decided that I wasn't going to make it, but I did. I don't know how I survived.
Over 13 miles later, it stopped, wiping a big part of Joplin off the map. A crew from the Weather Channel's tornado hunt team was chasing the storm and arrived just 10 minutes after the twister touched down.
Yeah, it's tough. No question about that.
I'm looking at one of the biggest tornado disasters that this country may have ever seen. And I knew that in the back of my mind, and I think it just got to me, and I just couldn't keep my emotions in check at that moment. You just had to be human.
In all, over 150 people lost their lives. 2,000 buildings were destroyed. To put it in perspective, this is Joplin before the tornado. This is after.
Happy to be alive, Like, we just look at each other randomly every now and then and just give each other a hug. And even though we haven't bathed in, 3 or 4 days, it's just amazing to be alive.
The Joplin tornado is the worst of the modern era. Ever since we've had any kind of tornado warnings or any kind of tornado watches, in fact, it's the deadliest tornado in the United States since 1947.
I think the Joplin tornado may have killed quite a few people, in part because it was embedded in precipitation and not readily visible.
It appears to have caught a lot of people by surprise. There were a large number of fatalities that occurred away from home. In most tornadoes, about 85% of all the fatalities occur inside of people's houses. In this tornado, that number was about 50%.
Sometimes it's still a little difficult for me to talk about it. I think it's affected everybody the way it's affected me. I didn't have any physical damage at my home or my business, but it's affected me emotionally. And sometimes it's a little difficult for me to talk about it without getting a little emotional.
But as the rebuilding and recovery began in Joplin, the horror was just beginning for some.
The name of the phobia that I developed was called Lilapsophobia. That one is a scary one.
Well, she was having panic attacks and a real high level of anxiety due to her fear of tornadoes.
I was experiencing a racing heartbeat, sweating, thoughts of doom, of being trapped, not knowing what to do or where to go, and I was hyperventilating like this. Every day I would check the weather in the morning, I would check the weather in the afternoon or at night or whenever I could. And if there was a storm predicted to come in, I did not want to go anywhere. If I opened the door and there were some clouds floating by that even looked like they might be kind of big, I'd shut the door. Somebody somewhere talking about tornadoes, I started panicking. And I would start panicking if I saw photos, videos, anything like that.
I was very concerned because she wouldn't admit she had it initially. And we kept arguing over the fact that she wouldn't some days go to work. She wouldn't, all she'd do is listen to the Weather Channel. And if it said anything about any kind of bad weather, she wasn't going anywhere. And, you can't live that way.
It's taken me about 3 months to actually realize I did have a phobia. It wasn't just a little fear. This was a big bad fear.
This shows you just how scary tornadoes are and how much panic they can create. But stick around for Karin's quest to overcome her terror of twisters.
It took an immense courage because I had fallen all the way down to the bottom of a very high mountain.
And still 3 more terrorizing twisters. Which tornado is the worst of all time?